Let's move on to the San Francisco Giants, and I believe that this was probably the beginning of one of the craziest things in free agency history, and that was the Carlos Correa saga. We obviously have to talk about that if we're talking about this offseason. He goes and signs a contract with them right before the press conference to welcome to San Francisco. They postpone it. A lot of question marks in the air. Maybe, was it a weather delay? Did the Coca-Cola bottle fall out into the outfield? We don't know, right? We didn't know what was going on. We find out that they're not going to sign him. While we're all sleeping, he goes and signs with the Mets. That didn't go through. He's officially now a Minnesota Twin. Crazy. What a crazy saga. MLB The Show, the new video game. I don't know if you saw it, but their new cover has Carlos Correa in the cover wearing a Twins jersey and then two other Correas next to him, one wearing a Mets jersey and one wearing a Giants jersey. I mean, they really hit it spot on. And I don't know if that was a true cover, but I saw it on the internet. And if it's not true, it needs to be true. So perfect.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Yes. However, this Correa saga, even though they didn't land Carlos, and they also went for Aaron Judge. Let's not forget, they also went for Aaron Judge. It didn't happen. They still had a sneaky good offseason, Sean. I think they really did.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at their offseason and just focus on the swings and misses, but I don't think that would be doing them justice. I think they did the best they could to kind of rebound from swinging for the fences, in the Aaron Judge, and I often wonder how much he was really leaning towards San Francisco as opposed to kind of using them to get Brian Cashman off his
100%.
100%. So there's that, but the swings and misses are big stories, huge stories. The Correa story will be a story that people joke about now for the next 100 years. But I think that to do that, to focus only on that, would be to do a massive injustice to the rest of their off season. Adding Michael Conforto, which is an excellent gamble, by the way.
Yeah, interesting gamble, but excellent one. Yeah, as well. He didn't play in the league last year, but we know what he can do. He was with the Mets for a very long time. Looks good doing it. He dealt with some shoulder injury. That's why he sat out. I think that was also a strategic move to get a big payday this offseason. And he did get some money in this one. So it did work out for him. 2 years, $36 million. I think that's definitely a gamble. What I'm more interested, though, is the other outfielder. I think Mitch Haniger is another good deal. And I think it's a value pick. I mean, this is a guy that at one point 2 years ago in 2021 was a 30 home run guy. He had some issues last year. I think he was only at 14, if I remember. It's 11 or 14. I can't remember. It's off my head. However, this is a guy that can easily get right back to that, especially in San Francisco. And so now you just added some really good outfield depth, which you absolutely need in that park and what you absolutely need to battle in the NL West.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see because he's kind of like, if you look, even going back to 2018, he's had up and down seasons. 2018 was 4.8 wins, and then it kind of dropped way down to 1.1, and back up to 2.5. And last year was abysmal. Mitch Haniger is kind of writing us a check right now to not talk about it, so we won't. But you're not really sure what you're going to get, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and looking at his projections, I think he's going to have kind of a bounce back season. I think we're looking at, 20, 25 home runs, maybe 120 weighted runs created plus, and, maybe 2.5 wins above replacement, which is, it's not necessarily going to win you an MVP, but that's not what the Giants are paying for, right? They're paying for a solid everyday outfielder, and I think they've got that in Mitch Haniger.
Yeah, I think that if they get exactly what you just said as the projections, they're ecstatic for what they get from Haniger. I know that they're not getting the Correa or the Judge numbers in this lineup, but what we saw last year, what we saw 2 years ago with this Giant squad, with half the players that we had to Google their names before the season started. So what they did 2 years ago, and then obviously last year was a setback. They were still at 500 though. Gabe Kapler has really turned his whole career around. He had a rough go in Philly. He is perfect in San Francisco, and I think with these players coming in, I think that is going to be a huge addition. Tell me about Ross Stripling. He comes over to San Francisco, obviously with Toronto last year. I think this is a huge get for San Francisco. We saw this a few years ago with Carlos Rondon, Kevin Gausman as well. They bring him over to San Francisco. They kind of have prove me contracts. They don't get the big payday, but they get a couple years with an opt out. Basically, it's a nice little pit stop before they go somewhere else and get their money. Could be another project as well. However, Stripling had a good year last year, did he not?
He really, really did. It started with ever since I think his final year in Los Angeles, Stripling has kind of been that guy where he doesn't have a really defined role, and so the same thing started last year, but then of course injury and Yusei Kikuchi kind of made it necessary that Ross Stripling start ball games, and he took off. He flourished, right? And I think what you saw his contract in the offseason kind of reflect the fact that he was a very reliable starter for the Blue Jays. What's interesting to see now is if that will be, I guess, real, if it'll last, right? Because he is really good at being that kind of swing man, the bulk inning kind of guy. And it will be interesting to see if that continues or if they're just going to just ride him as a starter. And because he's proven that he can do that, in the AL East, by the way, he's going to be facing some tough competition in the NOS. So maybe they lean on him a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if that pays off for them, because you're right. Every year it seems like San Francisco is taking a gamble in some way, shape, or form. And it just so happens that this year they have a few of them, and I think Ross Stripling is definitely one of those. Not necessarily a gamble in the sense that you're hoping he'll be good. It's more of a gamble in that you're not sure if what you saw at the bulk of last year is the real Ross Stripling, or if he's going to be more serviceable in multiple roles, I think is the gamble there.
Yeah, I think this is always an interesting concept with this team because we've seen it year in year and out for the last 3-4 seasons that they get these pitchers and they do well from them, but they don't re-sign them. They go find a couple more for, I don't know if you want to call them projects, but risk takers, if you will. Another one, and if San Francisco looked past the dreadful playoff appearances by him last season, and that's Sean Manaea. He comes over into San Francisco. I think this is more of a possible project because he even went on record saying that he felt like he was being quote unquote lazy at the end of the season. And that's something that obviously can't happen. You got to really change your culture. It's coming over, staying in the division, but going somewhere else. That's really important. Obviously Sean Manaea was very sought after at the beginning of last season when Oakland decided to just sell the ship that was already sinking. What's your thoughts on Manaea? Do you think he can really come back? I mean, the odds are in his favor for what we've seen San Francisco do in the last few seasons with these pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make a comeback and you're a pitcher, you sign with the Giants, right? Like, yeah. It just makes sense. They do it every year. So, yeah, I think that, that I wouldn't be surprised if that played a little bit, even a small bit into his decision. I like this guy. First of all, I liked him on excuse me. I liked him in Oakland. I liked him. I wanted Toronto to trade for him. I like this guy as a pitcher. And what's interesting, I think, is that he's projected right around where he has been last season overall, not necessarily when he was quote unquote lazy, but he's around 160 innings. He'll give you, almost 30 starts. So, he'll go half a game, 5 innings, maybe 6 if you're lucky. But the ERA is still up like well over 4. So if he can kind of, I don't know, if they can sprinkle some kind of giant magic on him, I think this could be one of those sneaky signings. Is he going to turn it around and pull a Carlos Rodon? I don't think so. But man, if he does, this could be huge for the Giants.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talking about the other side, who the pitcher throws it to, Joey Bart is taking over for San Francisco's catcher ever since Buster Posey went out and retired. There, for the longest time, we've talked about San Francisco with amazing catchers. I think that's really just been Buster Posey because he was there for so dang long. However, there's a lot of speculation if San Francisco can believe in Joey Bart. However, regardless of the fact, I still think they need to add somebody else to that roster. I think they don't really have. He's the only one on the 40-man. So, I mean, take that as you will. However, do you think San Francisco should believe as Joey Bart is the future catcher of this team, or should they go look somewhere else? Maybe your favorite player, Gary Sanchez.
Oh man, I have to be honest. If if the Giants think that their magic is good enough to save Gary Sanchez, then you know what? Plan the parade right now. Just call it a season. No, man, they almost have to. I think. Yeah. Add somebody, because when you look at, they just DFA'd Austin Wynn, So right now we're looking at Joey Bart and Blake Sobel, a Rule 5 pick. That that has got to be some Rule 5 pick. I have to admit, I'm not as familiar with Sobel, but if he's not the next Buster Posey, then I don't know what the Giants are going to do.
Right.
Because Joey Bart, offensively speaking, talent, sure. Absolutely. But we're looking at a projection, not even league average bat. And that's going to be tough, in that division, right? So I think they almost have to look to add a catcher. But there's the bigger problem is who? All of the big catchers, everybody's been traded or signed or whatever, right? So anybody they get may be just another Joey Bart anyway. So I don't know what the Giants are going to do in this situation. But at this point, whether you have faith in Joey Bart, you better act like you do, because that's all you got.
Yeah, they definitely have to add before spring training, even if it's a couple invites, minor league deals, whatever it is, and definitely pay attention very hard to that waiver wire, because they need to add some catching depth to their entire roster, not just their 40 man. To be completely honest, yeah, I don't know how I feel about Joey Bart, but isn't it wild that when we were talking the end of Buster Posey's career, when he was bouncing back between catcher and first base because of his knee and back problems, how everybody was just so excited about, yeah, Joey Bart's going to be in there. It's going to be just fine. He was the biggest prospect I think everybody heard of for I don't know how long. And then he hops in and everybody knew he's going to have big shoes to fill. Will he be ready? You can make the argument that he was pushed in too soon, and that might be the case. However, it's been way too long to make that argument anymore. And he has not lived up to the potential by any means to where he needs to be.
Yeah, and we just finished talking about the Blue Jays trading the top catching prospect in all of baseball, right? Like, this is I guess, a cautionary tale for all the prospect huggers out there. They're all well and good, but they're just that. It's potential, right? And sometimes potential doesn't realize. And whether or not Joey Bart can turn things around, I mean, he certainly hasn't lived up to that kind of hype where he can just step in and not miss a beat with Buster Posey leaving, right? So it'll be interesting. I really hope, because both for the Giants and for the individual, right? Because you want to see, you want to see everybody succeed. So except Manny Machado, of course, and Gary Sanchez, but. Those are my personal opinions. Do not represent those of Slasher Sports, of course. But yeah, you want to see him do well, right? And for the Giants' sake, you want to see him do well. But he's going to have to. There's a lot of pressure right now, and if he has another subpar season, they're going to have to look for a full-time, everyday answer. I think, because I don't know how much longer you can continue hoping for Joey Bart to step into that role.
I love that Orioles legend Manny Machado still living rent-free in your head. All right, 81 and 81, San Francisco Giants last season. They were 500. Obviously, Carlos Rondon is gone. Brandon Belt is gone. They do bring in some more offense, although it's not a Correa, it's not an Aaron Judge. Can you see them getting over the 500 mark, over 81 wins this coming season?
That's a tough call. Everything has to go right. All of these gambles, I think, have to work. You have a rotation of Webb and Cobb and Manaea and Stripling and Wood and to a lesser extent DeSclafani. That's a rotation of 4 ERAs if I ever saw one. And so it's a tough ask. Everything's going to have to go right for them. That being said, I do have to answer your question, so I'm going to actually go under. I don't know that they even are a 500 team. And that's sad for me, really.
Yeah. I'm going to go the opposite way. I don't think it's by many, just like with Arizona here, but I am going to say over. I am usually a 3-2 over on these divisions so far, which is actually crazy for some of them, not all of them. But in this case, I do have them over just by slightly, because what we saw 2 years ago, how great they were. I think they regressed too far last year. I think they'll bounce back a little bit. I mean, I'm talking like 80, 82, 83, like real, just right there. Right. I don't think that they're going to go too much higher. But yeah, I do see them going over, especially because I do think guys like Stripling and Manaea will do good. And I do like the offensive production. I do like what they added. I think that we're going to really sleep on that offensive production, especially early in the season, because everybody's going to keep talking about, well, they missed on Correa, they missed on Judge. Well, look what they got. And They brought Jock Peterson back. We didn't talk about him. He's been
Yeah.
resurrecting his career in San Francisco as well. So I got them as the over.